Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the City of Tempe Board of Adjustment meeting for May 28th, 2025. The time is now 6 p.m. The City of Tempe Board of Adjustment is authorized by the Arizona Revised Statutes and the City of Tempe Zoning Ordinance. Its function is to grant relief where a literal enforcement of the zoning ordinance would result in an unnecessary property hardship, to interpret provisions of the zoning ordinance, and to hear appeals from any person or city official aggrieved by the decision of a person responsible for the enforcement of the zoning ordinances. The board has the City of Tempe Community Development Staff Summary Reports on the two items being considered at this meeting, and we will use these reports in our deliberations. Roll call, starting to my right with Dr. Miller.
Mary Foy present.
Kevin Morrow's present.
Ron Kegi present.
Sean McCarley present.
Do we have Brett?
Brett Siegel present.
Okay, there are 6 of us. That is a quorum. Some staff introductions. We have, I think we have Jeff Tamulevich, Director of Community Development, Ryan Levesque, Deputy Director of Community Development. We have Matt Mansfield from the City Attorney's Office, Diane Kaminsky, the Principal Planner, Chris Jasper, Senior Planner, who's presenting tonight, Whitney Mayfield with the Planning Office, Jennifer Daniels, our Admin Assistant, and Eddie Garcia, making sure we talk into our microphones. All applicants and interested citizens, when your request is called or if you wish to address the board, please make sure, if you're a member of the public, make sure you filled out a citizen's request form located on table by the door. Give it to Jennifer, and then we'll invite you up to the microphone. You'll state your name and city of residence, and we'll give you 3 minutes. Please submit the form to a staff member before you begin speaking. For our first, agenda items, we have next tab. Meeting minutes from our April 23rd meeting. Any issues with the meeting minutes from anyone? No. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Brett. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, and I vote aye.
Abstain.
Okay, we've got 5 in favor and 1 abstention to approve the minutes from April 23rd. Diane, was I supposed to do the separate meeting minutes separately, or?
No, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
then they are both approved. Item 3, variance requests. We have 2 variance requests. 3A is a variance request to reduce the rear setback from 30 feet to 13 feet for a detached shade structure in the AG zoning district for the Chuang residence on East Carver Road. I have been told by staff that the applicant and the property owner are appearing virtually. Do we have them virtually, Jennifer?
Yes, request to unmute was sent.
Okay. This is the Board of Adjustments. Can you hear me? What is the applicant's name? I can't.
Sorry about that. I had to unmute myself there. Perfect. Okay, yes. So this is for the Chain residence. So I have the presentation here. And then on the next slide. So just going over, their address is 1747 East Carver Road. That's over in Tempe, Arizona for 85284. And this is for a variance request. So we are seeking a variance to reduce the rear setback from 30 feet to 13 feet to allow for the installation of a 300 square foot cantilevered 4K aluminum pergola. The max height on this is 9 feet tall, and the current rear setback is 30 feet off the property wall. So we are proposing the structure to be 13 feet from the rear wall. Next slide. So this is an indication of the aerial map. So this is the neighborhood of the project as well. So just indicating the neighboring lots with this. Next slide. And then from there, we do have the site plan. So there is a current swimming pool with a spa as well. So we already had a permit for that, and that was already permitted and completed. So we do just have the remaining structure to be completed. But again, this is just the site map of what that would look like with all of the setbacks and everything listed on there as well. And then the next slide. From there, we do have some current site photos. So these just indicate what that currently looks like. They did start construction on that, but obviously pulled off, realizing that we were having some issues with the setbacks and everything. But yeah, this is the current site photos with, again, the completed swimming pool and everything entailed with that. Next slide. And then I did include just some renderings of the completed, or what it would look like completed. So we propose a barbecue island underneath that shade structure. And again, this shade structure is very open. It's a 4K aluminum, so it is a solid structure, but it is still open as well too. So it's nothing where it would be enclosed or anything like that. It'd be more open and nothing, again, obstructing. And the height, again, would be completed at about 9 feet for the max for the height. Next slide. We did host the meeting, so here is just the meeting sign-off sheet. So everybody did approve the structure. We did not have any objections to it, so just wanted to provide that as well. And then this, sorry, it's kind of hard to read. I'll pull up my version. So it was just stating, so I'm just writing to formally request a variance to reduce the rear setback from 30 feet to 13 feet to allow for the installation of a 300 square foot cantilevered 4K aluminum pergola. The max height would be 9 feet tall. The current rear setback is 30 feet off of the property wall. We are proposing this structure to be at 13 feet from the rear wall at the Chang residence located at 1747 East Carver Road in Tempe 85284. Currently, the setback requirement is 30 feet from the back property wall. However, we would like to reduce the rear setback from 30 feet to 13 feet. The proposed setback would significantly limit the usable space in our backyard, which is not particularly deep. We did have already made investments in a swimming pool and spa and barbecue area, and additional structure would enhance our outdoor experience without obstructing the views or light. The cantilever design of the structure is open and airy, so just ensuring that it would not obstruct any views or create a visual barrier. We believe that granting this variance will not only benefit our family, but will also align with the community's aesthetics and functional needs as well. We sincerely appreciate your consideration of our request and hope that there is a favorable outcome. Please feel free to reach out if you do have any further questions or information. And that is it.
Okay, thank you very much, Megan. Question for members of the board. Well, members of the board, do you have questions for the applicant at this time before we hear from city staff? And I'm seeing none and hearing none from Brett. So at this point, I will call up the city, Whitney. Call up Whitney to give her presentation.
Right. Good evening. My name is Whitney Mayfield, City of Tempe Community Development Planner, and I'll be telling you a little bit about the Chang residence. As Megan stated, this is a variance to reduce the rear setback from 30 feet to 13 feet to allow a detached shade structure in the AG zoning district. And the property is located at the northwest corner of Warner Road and South McClintock Road. It's in the Shady Lanes Estates subdivision. Just to go over a little bit of the development standards, so typically with agricultural lots, they have a minimum net site area of 1 acre. Front setbacks are 40 feet. Front open structure setbacks are 35 feet. Side setbacks are 20, and rear setbacks are typically 35 feet. With the ramada, so because the ramada is a structure, but because it is 9 feet tall and 300 square feet in area, it meets the definition of an accessory building based on it. And again, that's based on its height and its size. And in this section of the code, the setbacks for accessory buildings that are specifically in the AG district have to comply with the setback standards for the district, which are to the left. All right, and a little bit about the subdivision. So in 1995, City Council approved variances as a part of the planned area development. Typically with the planned area development, so at that time, council used to approve variances to define the development standards. That's not something that we do currently, but the variance and the standards are as such on the slide. None of the variances included any for the rear setback. So that's why this becomes a problem, or not a problem, but that's why it triggers the need for this variance. All right, and then on the site plan, so just to explain a little bit, the front of the house is actually north facing, but on the site plan it's actually flipped. And then in the picture to the right, you'll see that that's an aerial that reflects the current condition that was shown in the photos that Megan had in her slide. And the site plan also shows that the structure, so this is a cantilevered structure, and it's about 13 feet from the property line. You'll see it in the circled area that's there. And again, these are just some context photos. All right, and as staff, we are recommending approval as we did find that it meets the criteria. I won't go through and read the criteria itself, but I'll share a couple slides with some photos just to kind of explain how they went about meeting it. One of the things that I want to point out in this first approval criteria is that typically with agriculturally zoned lots, this lot size is typically an acre. This one falls short. It's about 59% of the typical AG size, so that's kind of why why this triggers the need for a variance. And then this is just an example of one of the another AG zone lot. It's not in this Shady Lanes Estates subdivision. It's just another one that actually does meet the typical minimum required lot size of an acre. And you can see at the bottom, the red tick just kind of shows you what 30 feet from that property line looks like. And I know in the first slide I did state that the rear setback is 35. If we add 5 more, we see that it still doesn't really cause too much of a problem. Granted, the pool is a little bit closer to the residence, but we found that it meets that criteria because with this lot, I believe it is 23,000 square feet, so it's a lot closer. And with this next one, we don't think that the approval of this will constitute a grant of special privileges because we did find that there are some approved similar structures that are right next to the site. And with the last one, we didn't find that it was that this was a self-imposed problem, but as on account of the property owner, because again, just going back to the minimum required lot size for AG zoned lots, had this met that size requirement, I don't believe that it would have triggered the need for a variance. All right, and I was in attendance for the neighborhood meeting. 11 of the members did attend. All of them were in agreement with the proposal, and they were all in support of it. And our recommendation is to approve, subject to no unique conditions, just standard conditions. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions? Yes, Dr. Miller.
My question, first of all, would be, given that it appears that every lot in that development is substandard in size for its zoning, is there any thought to essentially either change the zoning so that you don't have this situation where anytime a property owner wants to do something in their backyard, they're probably going to have to come here and say, give us a variance? I'm sure at the time they did it, it made sense, but clearly you've got 3 other lots that have already done it. They want to do it. It looks like you're going to have the possibility that pretty much anybody in there is going to have to get a variance. Would that be something that could be pursued? And I don't know how they would do it, but could that be done?
Board Member Mr. Miller, that is something that could be an option. When this plot of land was annexed into the city, it's automatically zoned AG. There were some attempts to rezone to different zonings that maybe would have helped in this circumstance, but ultimately the community was opposed to that.
Well, then as a follow-up, is there a benefit to having an AG zoning when you actually don't meet the requirements for an AG zoning?
Yeah, go ahead.
So this property, as Whitney stated, was annexed in as AG. The attempts to rezone it at the time failed. They did do a planned area development and used the variance process that was used at that time to create the standards unique to this. So it is similar to a planned area development. They just, for whatever reason, did not address the rear setback at the time that they did that planned area development. Short of having all the property owners of the 13 houses involved in this subdivision come into some type of an agreement for an application to rezone or amend the PAD, this is the process we have to enable them to move forward with their request.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have one question, just out of more curiosity than anything. If it had been, if they only wanted to build it 8 feet high, would it then be an accessory structure? And do you know what the setback requirement would be?
I believe it would be considered, I'm sorry, Chair, it would be considered an accessory structure if it was 8 feet and 200 square feet in area. I may have to defer to Diana. I believe that it may also may have to comply with the development standards of the zoning district.
Yeah, the AG district has unique standards. I'd have to go back and look, but
Yeah, I'll go back to that, but that's specifically why typically in other residential zones, the setbacks would be based off of the height once it's categorized as an accessory building, but in this case, it explicitly states that accessory buildings have to comply with the development standards of the zoning district.
Okay, it's not a big deal, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, hearing none. Do we have any members of the public asking to speak on this matter? Hearing none. We usually give the applicant the last word. So Megan, if you have a final thought, we're happy to hear it. If not, we can.
No, I just appreciate your guys' time today. I did want to state one thing with the height thing. It is finishing at about 8 feet 8 inches. I just put the max at 9 feet technically. So that's just one of the kind of silly things there. And then 2, I heard if it was a 4-post structure, we wouldn't have had this issue. So because it is only cantilevered, this is also where another element kind of came into play with this. So it was just kind of a funkier application on this one. But again, I appreciate your guys' time tonight. So thank you so much.
All right. Discussions amongst the board. Anybody have any opening thoughts? Would you like to make a motion?
Motion to approve the variance.
I will second that motion. All those in favor of the motion to approve the variance, say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Hearing none. 6-0, the variance is approved. Congratulations. Item number 2 on our agenda is a request for a variance to reduce the rear yard and required side yard setback from 9 feet to 3 feet. So it's 2 separate variance requests to allow an accessory building in the R15 zoning district for the Gemini Garage located on East Gemini Drive. The applicant is Alexander Barros.
Chair Morrow, it appears that the applicant is not here yet, or is not. We do have staff here to present.
Okay, well, Mr. Jasper.
Chair, members of the board, yes, the applicant has not arrived yet. They did inform me that the applicant himself was not available to attend, but that they had a representative available to attend and present on their behalf. TBD. The options available are we can continue moving forward with staff's presentation and you can deliberate on the variance proposal, or continue the request to a future date and verify the applicant's attendance.
Depending on the board, I'm inclined to hear the staff presentation. I'm getting some nods. Okay, we'll go forward and see what happens then.
All right. Happy to soldier on. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Chris Jasper. I'm a senior planner here at the City of Tempe. I'll be presenting this item. So you have before you 2 variance requests to collectively reduce the rear and side yard setbacks, which are the north and east property lines respectively, to allow an approximately 1,100 square foot detached garage that is 44 by 25 by 19 feet in the northeast corner of the subject property. This is located in the Gemini Estates subdivision, or Westchester Estates subdivision. Excuse me. The Zoning and Development Code governs setbacks for accessory buildings based on height. So because the proposed structure, the proposed building, is over 14 feet in height, that is a minimum 9 foot. Oh, the applicant is here. Huzzah! Yes, it does. So the required setback would have been 9 feet. They are proposing to reduce that down to 3 in both the rear and side yard conditions. I feel like I jumped through that pretty quick. So going through the various criteria that dictate whether a variance can be supported by staff, staff has determined that none of the 4 are met. The first one being that the applicant must demonstrate that unique conditions exist related to the topographical or geographical or characteristics of the property. This is a pretty typically designed lot within the Westchester Estate subdivision. There are no encumbrances on this particular side of the lot. It is, rectangular in shape, and so there are no known unique conditions associated with the topography, with the layout that necessitate the variance. The applicant does note that the existing single-family residence is angled a little unusually. You can kind of see that on the aerial. Hence the need for the variance. However, the criteria does not account for built structures.
Just while we're talking about topography, is the lot flat, or is there any noticeable elevation change?
Staff is not aware of any elevation change. I will defer to the applicant. They did not identify one in their letter of explanation.
Okay, thanks.
Going forward, whether or not the proposed variance provides a special privilege, There is one property in the neighborhood that received a variance approval for a detached garage. This is located at 931 East Libra Drive, which was granted a variance in the mid-'80s to reduce the side and rear yard setbacks to allow for a detached accessory building. We were not able to find the actual building safety documents associated with that property, but it was smaller than the one that is proposed as part of this application, and the lot on which that particular detached garage was built is actually irregular in shape. So it's at the end of a cul-de-sac, and you can kind of see that in this case, it's the west property line. It's highlighted in blue in that larger context map on the bottom left. It kind of jogs inward. So at the time, it was determined that, a variance was appropriate for that particular site. But because it is, much lower in intensity than the proposed request, staff determined that there is not a precedent or a pattern of approvals for variances for this type of structure in this neighborhood. So this particular criteria has been, is not met. Going forward, does this provide a grant of special privilege that is inconsistent with approvals throughout the neighborhood, kind of as I determined or described in the previous criteria? This would provide a special privilege because it would allow a more intense detached structure that is otherwise not permitted throughout the subdivision. I did note that if the board did wish to approve the variance, we would recommend limiting the size and height of the building to conform with that Libra Drive variance approval to a maximum floor area similar to that Libra Drive approval and to a maximum height of approximately 15 feet and to match the color and materials of the existing residence. Because right now it's proposed to be 19 feet and all white with a metal roof. And finally, number 4, the variance is not allowed to be granted if the circumstances are self-imposed. Again, the configuration of the lot was a known condition. There were no externally imposed circumstances that were created by either the subdivision plat, the underlying zoning, or any encumbrances related to easements, topography, etc. Therefore, staff's determination is that the building configuration, the angle of the existing attached garage, those were known conditions, and the size and extent of this particular detached garage is entirely the preference of the applicant. There are alternatives, which staff has suggested to lower the building height to comply with the setbacks. So you can lower that building height to meet a 3-foot setback. You can move the building throughout the property to meet a 9-foot setback. You can attach the garage to change those setback and height standards. So essentially, staff's determination is that this criteria was not met and that the need for a variance is self-imposed. There was a neighborhood meeting that was held on April 16th from 5:30 to about 6:15. It was at the subject site. I was in attendance as well as 2 other residents who attended the meeting. They were generally supportive of the request. As of the creation of this slide, there were 2 letters of opposition and 2 letters of support. Since that time, we've also received 2 additional letters of opposition, bringing the total to 4 letters of opposition and 2 letters of support. Those who oppose the project state that they believe that the variance request is too intense, that it reduces the setback by too great of an extent, the structure is too tall, too disruptive, etc., and it does not allow for a visual buffer between the subject site and adjoining properties. There were letters of support that did note that the existing building was built at a kind of an odd angle, so they believe that putting an accessory structure on this property was appropriate with the assistance of a variance. Staff's recommendation is to deny the request or both requests. If the variances are approved, there are 2 conditions of approval that we would recommend be applied. This concludes my presentation. I'm available should you have any questions.
Do we have, I feel like we have questions for staff.
Yeah.
Start with Mary.
So you mentioned the one variance on Leaper Drive. Were there any other variances granted or any other accessory buildings that were allowed in the neighborhood?
So there were other variances for attached garages. So I have a little exhibit that I printed out that I can put up on the overhead, if I can figure out this technology. Oh my. You? Oh, I see. The Zoom. Hello. Wow. I've never used this projector before. Can you tell? Thank you. So there were a number of variances for attached garages. So those were located at 1013 East Gemini, which was for a, that was actually withdrawn, and then later constructed in compliance. So that one does not count. At 1001 East Gemini, there was an approved variance to allow, I believe that one was a attached garage. That was a reduction of about 5 feet. 6231 South Rita Lane was a request to allow an attached garage, second story addition. That request reduced the side yard setback from 15 to 8 feet. And then the 931 East Libra property was the variance that I described earlier. And that building was approximately 12 to 13 feet in height. So that's kind of the overall picture of variance requests. And the reason that we compared this particular project to the Libra project is it is the only one that was a detached structure that went through the variance process. The others were different in nature.
Thank you.
Sean, did you have a question?
So staff is certain that the property owner, when buying the property, was aware of the current setbacks, and that's usually through a title report, correct? Like it'll line out your property lines, just.
Chair, members of the board, I believe the zoning designation is identified in most of those materials. It's been a few years since I bought my house.
Yeah.
I seem to recall that was in there.
Yeah, I've not bought a house yet either, so I don't know if that stuff is present to the purchaser at the time of purchase, but it sounds like it should be. Or would be.
That's correct, and even if it isn't, and all of the information related to the zoning standards, the zoning designation, that's publicly available information on our website.
Got it. Thank you.
Just to follow up on the Libra Drive, that was, the variance was granted in 1985. I note that it backs up to what is currently vacant, although I know there are plans to develop that site that are working their way through the city at this point. But it is not impacting, at least for the moment, anybody, and hasn't for the last, 35 years or so. So while it is, in a sense, it's similar, it seems like it's kind of a different set of circumstances that exists there, because it's not really impacting anybody.
Chair, members of the board, that was staff's determination when evaluating whether a precedent existed. If you kind of look at the configuration of the lot, I think there's an argument to be made that there are unique conditions associated with that particular lot that do necessitate the variance approval at that time. It's also a much less intense request. So the standards of the time essentially said if you had a structure of over 8 feet in height, your required setback was 7 feet, and that was regardless of building height. So their request was to reduce that from 7 feet down to 3.
So it's really a much less significant request in a way. Looking at the map again on the Westchester Drive, 953 East, the unit or the construction in question is the southwest corner. Am I seeing that kind of correctly?
So you're referring to 953 East West
Yeah,
Chester
number
Drive?
3.
Okay, yes. So that was a request to reduce the eastern side yard setback from 15 feet to 7 feet to allow for a room addition. It's kind of difficult to see on the map, but it would be on that east side. So you can see it's a little bit closer to the property line coming off the primary building. So it's not on the rear.
Oh, okay. Because it looked like there was something in the southwest corner of that property.
That's correct. But that was built in conformance with our standards with the building permit.
All right, great, thank you.
Any other, Brett, do you have any questions for staff? I don't want to forget you.
I do not.
Okay.
Actually, I take that back. Can you flesh out your argument for the fourth prong? The way I read it, it sounds like every property owner assumes the setbacks when they purchase the property, and I know that's not always the case. Can you elaborate on that argument?
Sure. Can we go back to the slideshow? Oh. Yeah, so essentially, when we evaluate whether a special circumstance is quote unquote self-imposed, what we're looking for is whether there are unique circumstances associated with the property that have not been created by the property owner, like an external force that created restrictions that necessitate a variance request, and that's the only form of relief that they can find. So things like a very prescriptive easement, a right-of-way dedication, things of that nature that make the lot unusable for the purposes of whatever the variance request is that is otherwise enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district. So in this case, the only circumstances that exist that the applicant has identified as pushing this variance request forward is the angle of the existing house. And that is not a condition that staff determines to be externally imposed. So that's a known condition that could be worked around in a variety of manners. So we believe there are alternatives that allow for compliance, and that none of those externally imposed forces exist to necessitate this variance request. Hope that makes sense.
That does. Thank you.
Chris, I have one quick question just to put things in scale in my head, because you went to the property site.
Mm-hmm.
There's a house to the immediate east of it. How tall would you say that house is? Would you say it's taller or shorter than 19 feet? It's a tough question, but.
Chair, you're referring to the house to the east, is that correct?
Yeah.
I would hesitate to make a guesstimation. I don't recall it being 2 stories. That's my recollection. The applicant may be able to provide that information.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I know. I looked at the Google Maps. I wanted to get his opinion. Dr. Miller, you had a comment.
Yes. Look, when you mentioned that there would be potential alternatives to how to fix this, were they to add on to the existing garage? Am I correct in that I thought I saw something in there that the house itself is 30 feet maximum height? Am I right in that?
Chair, Board Member Miller, that is correct. The maximum height for the zoning district is 30 feet.
So if they decided to modify or expand the garage and make it an attached structure, just basically build off it, they could actually get their 19 feet or more by doing that. They might have to finagle some parking or, you know, a driveway or something, but that would be somewhat doable. And sort of as an aside, yes, the house to the east is single story. Since I ride by there fairly often.
I haven't been on the street, so I don't know.
It's right around the corner. Anyway, so that would be a way to solve that issue. It's not, it might be more expensive, it might, I don't know what, but there are alternative routes to take to get where they want to get without having to even actually, you know, come before us.
Board Member Miller, that is correct. I would just note that were they to attach the garage, they would be required to meet the setbacks for the zoning district, which is 15 feet. However, you know, it would be potentially further away from the property line, depending on how they, you know, configure it. But that is an
I'm
option, yes.
assuming that the garage in its angled configuration currently meets that 15 foot.
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so, all right, great, thank you.
All right, we'll give you a chance to rest and hear from the applicant.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Oh, thank you.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening. I'm here on behalf of my son, who's the owner of the home. He's unable to attend this evening due to work. Next slide. So our current project was supposed to be a 44 by 25 by 16-foot detached garage. Right now, we have not decided on a structure as we were awaiting the outcome of the variance meeting. But we are looking at fairly high-end garage buildings that are either aluminum or red iron in nature. And because it is detached, we were looking to keep with the southwestern theme of the home and looking at more of like a rustic, very decorative garage for the building. It is meant to house an RV lift, car lift, and automobiles. And then also have a two-post car lift for personal automotive maintenance. You can turn it. So this is what we were proposing for the garage, giving us just enough room to be able to edge into the garage at the corner of that of the lot due to the angle of the existing garage. And we are looking at changing some of the fencing to be able to access the backyard easier, because there's currently a single strip driveway that's pretty blocked off that makes it pretty difficult to get bigger vehicles through, which also probably prohibits some of our accessibility to the current garage. Oh, sorry, you can. These are just some models that we put into our proposal. This is not definitely what we are going with or the final rendering of what we were looking at, but this is just some of the pictures that we, through different companies that are available in Arizona, what they offer. And it would be through a company that would actually build it on site for us, doing all the electrical work, concrete, everything that's required for the building. I'm used to having the clicker. So we were asking for a variance request for the reduction of the rear and side setbacks from the required 9 feet due to the height of the building down to 3 feet to accommodate the space of the building and be able to access past where the current garage is. And again, this was just to make efficient use of the existing space that we have. We do have plans, future plans for the other side of the yard, and that's why we're not looking at the other side right now. and room additions. So that's why we want to keep our driveway on the one side with having the garage overall on one side of the home building. Next slide. As Chris noted, we did have a neighborhood meeting. We did have 2 other people come in and say that they were willing to support the project. We did have 2 notifications of opposition prior to this meeting, and now there's 2 more, which they noted the height of our project, what it would look like, the aesthetics of it, and the overall size of the garage that we want to have. Next one. And I won't go through the precedents for the variance because Chris already did that.
I believe that's for us.
Okay.
Thank you. Questions from members of the board? Mary?
Hi, I have a question. On your slide, you have 2 variances for large detached garages. Is that true? That there's 2 detached garages?
No,
that get
it's just
covered?
one detached garage.
And the other question would be, that's a rather large structure, right? And it's only going to be 3 feet away from your neighbor. That's a lot, plus 19 feet. So you need to get a variance from 15 to 19 feet, is that correct?
Oh, you mean from the wall space?
For the height, you still need that variance also?
The height was 16 feet on
16
our,
feet?
16 feet.
Okay. All right.
I could clarify that,
Yeah.
Board Member Foy. They will need a use permit standard for the additional height, so a separate process to the Development Review Commission after this meeting, depending on the determination.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Actually, I do.
Okay.
You or your son, or I'm assuming your son, purchased the house in the property in 2024, approximately early, it doesn't matter really. At the time, did he look at it and, well, what was his thought process? In other words, I'm going to have to do this eventually, or I want to do this, or this might be a good idea?
I think both. From the beginning, he wanted a sizable piece of property to be able to have his own garage beyond what was there. And the previous owner also kind of shared with him, oh, I was thinking about doing the same thing. That's what I was going to do. Actually, where we were planning on putting the garage, that's where the previous owner stored his boat. And because he ended up selling the home due to personal matters, he didn't go through with putting it in the garage.
And by that, I'm assuming that he was storing his boat, just basically on his trailer, just putting it back there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so the plan for him also was to get a variance, put a garage in. He was actually who kind of told us about his plans.
What exactly did he share with you in terms of the variance process? Anything?
Basically told my son that he had to have a meeting, submit the variance, the paperwork that, what he wanted, hold a neighborhood meeting, and then attend a board meeting.
Was there discussion about what actually was going to be requested in terms of setbacks, heights, and things like that?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so it was sort of, yeah, you can do this. Okay, thank you.
So my question, if you know, Chris and the city staff indicated that they've suggested alternative places to put the garage. So why don't you want to do that?
I think now going through this, speaking with Chris, having our meeting, definitely looking at, we do have backup options.
Do you have a question? No question. Any other questions? Brett, do you have a question?
I don't. Thank you.
I do have it.
Okay, we have one more.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry to ask so many questions, but could you describe the idea of storage lifts? That's something I normally see in a garage in Manhattan or someplace, not necessarily in Tempe.
I think to reduce the size of the garage and not have like a 4-car garage across widthwise, we were looking at having a longer garage, just a double-car garage, and then depth-wise, to give us like greater storage, having a car lift that we could put 2 smaller cars, one underneath and then one on top.
So how many vehicles is the plan to store there? That's,
It would be a van, Winnebago RV, and then a car lift with 2 small cars, and then probably in front of that motorcycles or other lawn stuff.
so a fairly intensive use.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have a question. I just have a comment on this. You know, reading the staff report and looking at the criteria for the variances, I think staff did an excellent job of highlighting where this falls short in meeting this criteria. So I'm just going to state for the record that I will not be supporting the variance.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, hearing. Okay, speak now. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have any members of the public who wish to be heard on this matter? I'm getting a head shaken. All right, so Ron's a no. Anybody else have thoughts? Dr. Miller.
After going over the staff report and actually having some knowledge of the area and the community and that particular site, I would have a very difficult time supporting this. It's an extremely intensive use, and it also a very large structure. Plus, while there's an idea that while we want to do something else on the other side of the property, I think there are other ways to skin the cat, and just doing this seems like it's not a good idea. Plus, it is going to really be a precedent setting for that neighborhood that hasn't really had one before. I think we're opening up something that would be potentially very damaging to the rest of that community.
Jumping off Chair Miller's, I also believe that in that there is other room on the property, and that all the other variances that were approved were attached already to the building structure, and that there are ways to do it that way. I think that is a big determinant in my decision, and I will most likely not be supporting this.
And my concerns are more about the size of the structure and how close it's going to be to the neighbors. Just a 3-foot setback is just, that kind of a request is just, to me, too much for that neighborhood. And I think also, and I agree with my board members here, that it would be setting a precedent for such a large building on a lot in that neighborhood. And I think there are alternatives for placement, either by attaching it to the garage or other places in the yard, where it's not going to be abutting so close to the neighbors. So I will not be supporting this variance.
Brett, do you have any comments? It's okay if you don't.
I have no comments. I share the sentiments of the board.
I keep my comments to myself. Do I have a motion?
I motion to not approve the variance.
Okay, we have a motion to deny.
Second.
We have a second. All those.
Can I ask a procedural question?
It's got to be. We're supposed to motion in the affirmative.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was my procedural question. So the motion, I think the motion should be to approve the request and then vote it down.
No. It's the opposite of that. No.
No. Okay.
We motion to do something. We motion to deny it.
Okay. That's fine.
I remember that training. Okay, so I have a motion to deny the variance, a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any nays? Hearing none. So 6-0, the motion carries and the variances are both denied. Next item would be chair staff updates. My understanding is we have no June meeting, probably no July meeting, hopefully going to get some more members soon. So hopefully everybody has a good summer. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Mary has moved.
Second.
Sean seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. And we are adjourned at 6:55. Thank you, everyone.